Hi, everyone. Welcome to our event to introduce you to Web3. So I'd say this is a very special event for us, especially at the Kennedy School, where, at least in the HKS Blockchain Club, we've been trying to understand concepts of decentralization, trying to get just a theoretical understanding of crypto, why decentralization is important, and why us as people that are going to go into government and be thinking about regulation of this industry, why we need to understand the technical details. So we've touched on decentralization, but in this session, with our special guest, Steve, not only are we going to touch on the theory, Steve's going to walk us through hands-on practical application of how to set up a crypto wallet. So that's going to be the focus of this first session. And then in the next session, not only will you understand how to open up a wallet and manage that, you're going to understand how to set up an investment club, how to operate your own decentralized autonomous organization, and really start extending beyond just the basic concepts of crypto, but future concepts of this industry. What can we do when we go beyond just NFT digital art and just beyond crypto tokens? So how is this technology going to impact substantially real world business models and change the way ownership occurs for real world assets? So you're going to theory, get hands-on application that's going to give you insights into this future. Now, in terms of Steve, so he's an MIT undergrad. He was an MIT mechanical engineer. Then he set up Georgia Tech Ventures. So he's been in the venture space working on startups for many years. He did his MBA at MIT Sloan. And he's been teaching blockchain ventures not only at the MIT Media Lab, at Babson College, and what was the other place? MIT Bitcoin Club as well. So we're very happy to have him here as our guest. And I'm going to hand it over to him now to dive into the session.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me through this? Knock once if you can hear me. So it's okay? Okay. Great, fantastic. So happy to be here. This has been a long time in the planning, and I'm excited to teach you guys about Web3 and about crypto and blockchain. Just to double click on what Paul just said about my background, I kind of have like a engineer MBA kind of blend, but then you also overlay kind of the nerdy MIT men's at Manus thinking and doing. So I like to structure all my lectures that way. We'll do a little bit of theory, and then I'm so glad to see all these laptops open because you guys are going to get into it and start, get your hands dirty. And I truly believe that real learning is let me understand the theoretical basis for this, but then let's actually go and do it. So that's kind of why I was born an engineer, I guess. So, and let's see. Yeah, I've got a bunch of, okay. If you guys have already connected to the WhatsApp chat, that's fantastic. We're going to do something later with that, but I wanted to leave the QR code open. If you haven't connected to it, ask a friend, but I'll pop it up in a little bit. So, okay. I have to have this content. Tim, you're welcome. If you lose money, don't blame me. If you make money, please share. So this is a little more detail about me, and that is actually me on my paraglider in Santa Barbara. If anybody's a paraglider or pilot, I'd love to talk to you afterwards. I've done a bunch of stuff, as Paul mentioned, in kind of technology innovation and kind of bringing technologies to market. But when I found blockchain and cryptocurrency, I was like, all of these interesting aspects of a technology, if I look at blockchain and crypto from a technology lens and an innovation lens and look at the impact it can have on markets, that was transformative for me. So that was 2016 or so, and everybody has that sort of catchphrase about going down the rabbit hole. And that's really what excited me about it. And hopefully you'll understand some of that by the time we go through the first part of this today. I want to go through a little bit of the background of crypto and what it is and how it all works. And then a bunch of other stuff, blockchain ventures, I mentioned all that already. The one thing I'm doing right now is hashchat.xyz, which is a wall-to-wall messaging app, and I'll tell you more about that later too. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Let's get a level set of where we are. and I want to layer up some stacks, and we'll get more and more complicated as we go along. You guys all know about the web. You've been living a life of the web for your whole life. It's the internet of information, right? Some people who are older may remember when it first came out and it was called the internet of information. Information wants to be free. It wants to go all over the place. But of course, the challenge is, where did this information come from? Where is this source of information? How do I know this meme that my friends sent me that they claim is theirs is actually theirs? I have no way of knowing. There's no way of sort of defining uniqueness on the web itself. So built on top of the web is blockchain, and I call it the internet of value. And what blockchain does that's unique is, well, it provides a unique ability to define an address and define a space and claim ownership in that and digitally prove that I own that space. So there's a digital asset out there that I can say, without a doubt, cryptographically proven over and over and over again that I own that. And that is transformative in terms of where we've come from in terms of the Web 2 world. Like, can do it with third-party stuff, but to do that and to claim that without any third party and to do it sort of on your own is like an amazing sort of first step. So now I have these digital asset rails that are global, and I can claim ownership in things on the blockchain. So of course, a digital asset, the most interesting digital asset is currency, right? And that's what becomes super popular. So built on top of blockchain is cryptocurrency, or what I call the internet of money, right? So everybody, there's a lot of things in between those two, like NFTs dance in between those two. But if you just think about kind of how it's being built up and why the press is talking about cryptocurrency all the time, because it's the most exciting thing ever. And then there's NFTs that come along, but there's a ton of other stuff to explore in between those. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward, right? You've got a network sort of stacked up from the beginning. But what is blockchain? And this is the picture that I had in my head when I first heard the phrase blockchain. And in fact, it actually is a blockchain. The red block is the Genesis block where they started the chain. And then every block is a list of transactions, where a transaction is like, I want to move some money from here, from this wallet to that wallet, from this address to that address. I want to run a smart contract. Whatever the transaction is, it's going to be a long number. And each block contains a whole list of transactions. And then that chain is a hash. If I say a hash of a number, does anybody know what that is? Or does everybody know what that is? Or somewhere in between? Raise your hand if you know what I mean by when I say hash. All right. So another way to think of it is kind of a fingerprint of all the numbers. So I have a unique number that if any number changes in the block, that number changes dramatically. So once I have all of those transactions and they're locked in the block and I take a hash of that, it's like grabbing a quick snapshot of all of those transactions. And what that's doing is that's securing all those transactions to only be in that block. So I take that hash and then I chain it to the next block. So what you end up getting is I have a whole bunch of transactions that are locked into the blockchain, and then they hash together to the next transaction block, and the hash is in that block. So as I continue to sort of grow this, what you end up getting is an incredibly secure set of transactions. And that's sort of what's foundational to the blockchain name and what it kind of means. And what this also means is the longer the chain is, some people argue, the more secure it is. So it's virtually impossible for me to go back to a transaction from 2 years ago and do anything other than report on it and look at it. I mean, I could try and change it, but you would have to change every single transaction after that point in order to do that. So when you start to get into cryptocurrency and to interact with the blockchains, and you see sort of transactions that happen and people say, well, I'm going to have to wait for a certain number of network confirmations before I can confirm this, that just means they want it pushed down in the stack a little further so that no one can mess with it. Anyways, that's getting a little ahead of myself. Okay, what is blockchain? That's number one. And what I want to do is kind of describe blockchain to you in a bunch of different ways. So another way to think about blockchain, and a lot of times people conflate Bitcoin and blockchain because Bitcoin was the very first blockchain. So that's why they get kind of mixed up a bunch of times. So if I want to look at kind of the oldest blockchain, I want to look at the live nodes of Bitcoin, and there's 11,000 nodes all over the world that are simultaneously confirming all the transactions. Each one of these nodes has an exact copy that can be cryptographically proved to be exactly the same as all the other 11,000 nodes. So the other thing to look at when you see this picture is you realize there's a whole bunch of countries involved in coordinating this Bitcoin currency. Isn't that cool? What if one country decided to make it illegal? Would Bitcoin go away? No, okay. Okay, I'm getting a couple of no's. Good, good. But you know, a lot of times people, you know, we take a very US centric view here. I do certainly, and it's sometimes hard to sort of think of outside that, and then you realize, wow, this is happening everywhere, and this is really important in other countries and what they're doing with it. But you know, it's also good to sort of see how robust it is too. Like, you know, you could probably knock it out a few places. Maybe if the US and Europe decided that Bitcoin was illegal, you could have a major impact on it, but it wouldn't necessarily go away. It would just have a price impact, right? Okay. The other second most populous cryptocurrency is Ethereum. And if we look at the nodes of Ethereum from January 20, it hasn't changed much. There's like 10,000 nodes, right? So similar kind of hotspots. There's actually a lot more in South America than show up on this map. Okay. So that's kind of two ways to look at blockchain. Let's look at it a third way. And if you want, if you guys are on the WhatsApp chat, oh, I haven't put this on there yet. Sorry. So you can look at it from a live. Let's see. Do I have this running here? Connection's not private. Well, I'll just show you the picture, I guess. So if you want to go to that web page, txstreet.com/v/Ethereum, you can see that this is actually live happening. Yeah, I'll put it back. And what it's showing is the applications on one side that are starting the transaction. So when I said earlier about transactions being listed in a block, that's a very boring way to think about it. A much more exciting way to think about it is to visualize kind of a bunch of applications like what you see here on the left, the Fox and different transactions and Uniswap. Those are all sending these little characters over, and they're lining up to be queued up into the next bus. In this animation, they're using a bus to be a block. And then the way they're being sorted is by gas. So depending on how much gas someone pays, they can get a higher priority to get their transaction confirmed on chain faster than anybody else. And if you're pulling it up live and you can see it live, you can see these things dancing around, and it actually happens real time. Oh yeah, sorry. Yep. txstreet.com/v/ETH. And there's a way you have to hit like launch, and then there's a way to look at dual view and single view. So you can look at Ethereum next to Bitcoin as well. So you can see kind of how fast the Ethereum chain is operating, and then how slow the Bitcoin chain is operating as well. So that's another sort of view of what's happening on these blockchains. Oh, did everybody get that? Why is it that the transactions are South Park characters? I don't know, but I think it's fantastic. Yes. Mm-hmm. They are shared. I don't know if Josh, if you've got to hack them, but I'll post it to the WhatsApp group when we're done. Yes, ma'am. I'm not sure. It may be like a bigger transaction in this particular animation, but usually when you see them dancing across, they kind of change size. So I don't know if it actually has a meaning or not, or if it's just a fun animation. Yes. Yeah. So in the real life scenario, let's say. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's not a confirmed transaction. It's a transaction in waiting. So if you have a small value transaction and you don't mind waiting a few weeks, you can post it with a very low gas fee, and then it'll just sit in that waiting pool. And then maybe you might get lucky and it'll get picked up into a block once the price comes down like overnight, which it's 24/7. So there's never really an overnight, right? It's a global market. So does that make sense? Right. Right. And that has, yeah, if somebody doesn't want to pay anything for the transaction fee, then it's going to take weeks, and then I'm not going to give you the pizza till I get a confirmed transaction for sure. Yeah. So then you have to decide, and usually the way, well, you'll see in a few minutes, you'll see when you actually go to post a transaction, you have to give it a certain amount of gas fee in order to get priority, and it'll tell you like this will take less than 30 seconds if you pay this much. This will take 3 minutes if you pay this much. So it'll actually disclose all that stuff. Was there a question back here? Yes, sir. Yeah. You mean on the world map? So the question, sorry, I'm trying to repeat the questions for the people online. The question was, in the maps, there's big gap areas, and what's missing there, or what's? What is this gap? Yeah, there's no nodes that have come up to the level of this resolution of this map. So I mean, I'm sure if you zoom in on it, you could probably find different things. That's why I was kind of embarrassed. I have friends in South America, and I know they run nodes, so I'm sure there's more than 0 there that's shown on the map. So, yes, ma'am. Yes. Thank you. Please, I love the. So the question was, what is the purpose of a node? Why do we have a node? So in the decentralized blockchain model, when we have this gigantic set of blockchains that are a whole bunch of transactions, those are simultaneously copied and confirmed to all of the nodes at roughly the same time, right? It'd be nice to be at the same time. And those nodes are confirming all of the transactions and keeping a copy of the database. And this is one of the key elements of being fully decentralized. So there's no one server that's in charge of all this. So a node is, I mean, if we just get very simple, it's a laptop in someone's closet, right? Or a desktop, or an AWS server, or an Azure server, running the open source code of Ethereum to confirm all the transactions. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to, and a nice, strong internet connection. So you can run a node in your closet if you want. I think the Ethereum blockchain is like 6 terabytes now, something like that. So if you have a disk space that's big enough for it, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Yeah. Yes, you can think of a node as kind of a register or a decentralized ledger, distributed ledger. Like it's holding a copy of the ledger but it's doing more than that because it's confirming and it's actually running code. It's not just storing stuff. It's not just a database. So yeah, you can think of it basically as a database, but then with some smarts to it. Any other questions on this one? Yes, sir. They usually, a miner usually runs nodes because it's very convenient. But a node is like if you want to have a direct on-ramp onto the chain and you want to run your own node, you can actually put a transaction on your node and have it pushed in. But it's the miners that confirm it. So I actually have removed the miners from a lot of this talk because it's a complicating factor and it's really a lot of the gears that just make the blockchain work. But nodes are really what's kind of confirming and really shows the distribution of it. No. Neither is, all nodes are not miners and all miners are not nodes. Miners usually have a lot of nodes with them because it just makes sense that they've got all this computational horsepower. But yeah, so, and I know that's been a whole business. Any other questions on this?
This shows some buses, and it says that each bus represents a future block.
Yes.
And the bus leaves when the block is found.
Right.
I didn't understand that.
Okay. So the animation is saying that the blockchain is kind of a bus chain, right? I mean, this is going a little too far, but what's shown are the ones that are in queue. Those are not actually confirmed on the block yet. So all those transactions have to get queued up and then they get mined by the miners, which is not shown in that animation. Once that's mined and confirmed, then it gets pushed onto the blockchain and becomes part of the permanent record. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes. Microphones? Yeah.
So how does the web decide which miner or coders get to do that transaction? Everybody? That doesn't seem to be efficient, but who?
Yeah, so in the proof of work case, which I can describe, it's the easiest one. There's a computational puzzle that needs to be solved, and that's why people spend a lot of money and a lot of energy on their GPU like racks to kind of solve this puzzle faster than anybody else. And it's the first person to get the answer that wins the block reward. So in the case of Bitcoin, I think it's at like 6 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. So it's a lot of money every 10 minutes, and people are willing to spend a lot of money on electricity in order to win that. And of course, if you don't win it, then it's all lost because it's win or nothing. So that's kind of how it gets decided for Bitcoin itself.
If I initiate a transaction, then everybody on the web just gets to calculate, and whoever figure out the problem will win the bid. And
so yeah, you have to run the certain miner software, and you have to be registered with a miner pool in order to do it. But yeah, theoretically, anybody with a computer can run it and submit their answer if they can get it faster than some of the gigantic miners. So it used to be, and the Micro Center down here was sold out of GPUs whenever the price of Bitcoin would come down. This is back when Bitcoin was reasonably priced and you could actually make money with that. And some people were just buying them up, and they could kind of run a mining pool in their dorm room and generate a bunch of money to pay them off in a matter of days. It was great, but then everybody else figured it out. So now it's not fun anymore.
thank you.
Yes.
We have a question from the folks remote here.
Okay.
Aren't all those fulfillment fees negate the arguments of no middleman and independence?
That's a great question. Okay, so what we have, and I've got more stuff on this later on, but let me just answer the question briefly. What you have is there's nobody controlling it, right? I mean, there's no central actor, but you do have economic contracts or economic deals that the miners engage in, right? They're engaging in this game of saying, if I get the first, if I solve the puzzle fastest, I will win the award. And that game has been set up in the beginning when we have that Genesis block, when we create the chain. All right, let me not put that complexity up yet. That's coming in a second. But I think the whole idea of organizational structure is something that's a fantastic topic that I want to talk about a lot more. But I want to get you guys a little more into kind of what this blockchain thing is first before we dive into that. So, okay, let me keep going. And then we can, I've got time for a bunch more questions later on. Okay, so I want to go a click more detailed. So you guys saw the sort of 3 layers where you've got, at the bottom, you've got the internet, and what's not shown on this chart is the internet off the bottom. And then you've got the blockchain layer. So the lowest layer is the public blockchain layer. And then above that is the protocol layer. So, and on the left side, I guess it's left side, we have Bitcoin kind of in the vertical axis here. And I've got it somewhat chronologically. So you've got Bitcoin starting in 2009. There is a very thin smart contract layer on top of Bitcoin protocol, BTC protocol. And then you've got Bitcoin Cash, and you've got the Bitcoin currency, of course, and Bitcoin Gold. A lot of people talk about Bitcoin because it is the most valuable one, and it's the longest chain. So some people say that it's more secure than any other blockchain because it started in 2009, so therefore it's the longest. I see Bitcoin as kind of like the Dow 30. Like, you should buy and hold it, but it's not very fun, right? You just watch it go up or down, and you don't even do anything with it, right? So where I find very exciting and very interesting is in Ethereum, which I consider Ethereum to be more like the NASDAQ, where you've got a whole bunch of developers adding things on top of it. And what Ethereum has done is they took all the ideas from Bitcoin, and then they added this smart contract layer on top of it that's a lot more robust, and there's a lot more programming you can do with it. It has the Ethereum currency here, but you can also build decentralized applications on top of it. The guys at CryptoKitties, if some of you guys may remember that was actually the very first NFT. The people at CryptoKitties lobbied hard to invent this thing called NFTs. And then you can make your own tokens and NFTs there. And then there's actually some other chains that we'll talk about later. But then on the far right, because blockchain was hot and everybody was excited about it, of course, the corporations wanted to get into it. So IBM has their Hyperledger, which I think they've now dropped. There's a whole bunch of other chains as well. And given that Bitcoin and Ethereum are both completely open source, you can download the code and change it however you want and run your own code. Of course, smart people said, wow, Bitcoin's made a few $1 billion. Why don't I just take that code and tweak it a little bit and make another one? And there's a ton of copycat chains out there as well that we'll talk about in a second. So for this talk and for next week's talk, we're just going to stay in this little red box, okay? But I wanted you guys to see kind of where the rest of the landscape is. You know, I want you to be aware of kind of the protocol level stuff, but we don't have to dive into that. I want to focus on just the decentralized applications, custom tokens, and NFTs. So yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Okay. So last September, Ethereum used to be, before that, Ethereum used to be proof of work, which was the same thing as Bitcoin, where you had to run these miners to kind of solve this problem and consume a lot of electricity. And they converted from proof of work to proof of stake. And they reduced the electricity consumption by, I think it was 99.99%, so that basically the conceptual difference is, instead of having to run a whole bunch of computers and basically spend a lot of money on electricity to win a competition, you simply put a cryptocurrency at risk. And you say, I'm going to confirm these transactions, and this currency is at risk here. So it's proof of stake, right? I've put a stake on this node on these transactions, and it's a lot cheaper to run a computer in your closet. So all of a sudden, all of these miners, instead of being, you know, gigantic racks of things, become just like the nodes that you saw. So the electricity, if I can send you some more details on that, but that's what happened, and that's a great example if you're looking at electricity consumption. So if you want to make money in it, you definitely stay with Bitcoin, because all the Bitcoin guys are saying we're not going anywhere from proof of work. It's the greatest thing ever. So, all right, yes. Right. So the question was, after the change from proof of work to proof of stake, did that reduce the gas fees? Not initially, but that changeover is supposed to set up a whole bunch of new technologies that they're coming out with. There's a bunch of other, this is the Ethereum Foundation now, there's a bunch of other features and enhancements that are going to reduce the gas cost as well. It did actually end up reducing the gas cost, but that may have been because the price of Ethereum came down. So wasn't necessarily designed specifically for that. Okay. So that's kind of the blockchain landscape, and I'm going to come back to this picture. So if you have some questions about it, we can go back to it. But I want to shift gears a little bit and think about it from a macroeconomic perspective and compare sort of central banks. I didn't get this. Don't worry, Tim. Professor Masad hasn't reviewed this slide, so he has no claim to this. But I love it because you can think of Bitcoin in a monetary policy perspective, and you can say, like, what's the monetary policy of Bitcoin? It is 21 million tokens, right, that were launched, and they'll be given out a certain amount in order to secure the network. And that was laid out at that red block, that Genesis block, and that was when it was defined. And if you compare that with what we all know and love, which is our central banks, the Federal Reserve, that's a very much a top-down organization. So the one thing I want you to take from this slide is traditional organizations that are top-down pyramid structure that we all know, right? Everything is a pyramid, right? It's always like, who's in charge? The government, some organization, a corporation, your church, your family. There's always kind of this pyramid structure. And now we're shifting to a donut structure. Although some of my friends have told me I should say it's a bagel, because a bagel is a little more international and a donut's really American. So I can't, and a donut sometimes doesn't have a center in it. You know, sometimes it's filled, but these are donuts with holes, or bagels. Okay, fine, they're bagels. But if you think about a bagel organization, it's weird. I mean, and I've been thinking about this for years, and I still don't really have my head around it. But basically, all of the transactions that happen at the edge of the networks, like, they're all economic transactions, and they all agree on a central set of code or principles that they're going to operate under, and then they just coordinate via that code. And that's what's happening in Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other decentralized things. So I wanted to just introduce that here, but it's by no means a short conversation. So there's a lot of other examples of decentralization. What does that mean exactly? And why are you looking at a central bank versus Bitcoin? And I think because it's monetary policy. So anyways, yes, ma'am. Are you asking? So the question was, how is it that people can actually do what they're supposed to do without somebody cracking the whip on their head? Is that the question? Yes. Yes. Correct. Yes. So the question or comment was, is it safe to say that they're operating with each other without having any oversight? And yes, that's the answer, which is, it's kind of like an individual contributor, right? Like, tell me what the rules of engagement are and I'll do that, right? I don't need someone telling me that I'm doing a good job or yay or not. I'm just going to operate that way. And if I can make money doing that, that's great. So it's a different way of thinking about it. I mean, the only other way or the only other examples I've come across are, big ones are, are farmer cooperatives, right? Or cooperatives. And I don't know if you guys know, but Land O'Lakes is a $5 billion farmer-owned cooperative. So it's successful, it can work. The way they have it structured is incredibly complex, but it works. And then, I don't know if, anyways, we can move on from there. Any other questions on this? Good. Okay. So that's kind of a real quick one slide on macroeconomics, but now let's talk finance. Is there any finance people here? Anybody, accountant, bookkeeping? Don't worry, I'm not going to call on you. Maybe. So another phrase that people use to describe blockchain is distributed ledger technology. And just so for refresher, a general ledger, right? It's got debits and credits, and it has to be balanced out, right? And you have to take a look at a finance perspective on all these things. And it goes back to the Ebenezer Scrooge when we have to balance the books and everything else. If anybody remembers their ledger, when I make a mistake in a ledger entry, how do I fix it? Anybody want to wager a guess? Yes, sir. Right, but can I just go back and erase it? So it's an append-only ledger, right? You can't go back and erase it. And the joke was always that the bookkeepers just crack their erasers off their pencils and throw them away. So when I've talked to CFOs about blockchain, this is going back several years, and I described to them kind of that it's a distributed ledger technology and that it's constantly synchronized and that it's immutable, like it's append-only, right? I described to you the blockchain, right? And there's no way to change those things. And it's time-stamped and it's decentralized. So, it's robust, right? If you're talking to a CFO of a major corporation and you're saying, hey, I've got this thing that's decentralized, and you say, who cares? Like, well, okay, if this headquarters or field office loses power, you still have it all in all these other locations all the time, so you don't have to worry about it. Or in a more extreme case, if our office in this country is under siege and is at war, you can still access all your books because they've been synchronized everywhere else. So, there are other ways to do that, sure, but it's kind of a nice feature to all that. And most of the time, the CFOs say, if you can get me an automatically synchronized set of ledgers, I want that. Just give me that part. And we'll make it distributed, not decentralized. And this is, obviously a centralized organization that wants to do that. So I wanted to mention this because it often comes up in terms of the finance perspective and the appreciation for kind of what blockchain does. So if you take all those things together, right, like a bunch of crypto stuff and a bunch of miners and a bunch of nodes all over the world and this macroeconomic policy, and then it does this append-only ledger, you get like all of these pieces that you can kind of see from different lenses what this blockchain is. And the reason why I got excited about it years ago, because it really impacts all of these different aspects. And we haven't talked about management. Well, okay, this is what I say. Blockchain is the operating system for the global economy. So if you think about it all over the place, and that you can move digital assets on this globally available and anonymous asset rails, it can really form the basis of a foundation for an operating system for a global economy. So what do you think about that, Doctor? After I've gone, that's fine. Okay, so that's kind of all of the theory that I have for you guys and all kind of the layout, and we're going to move into kind of lab mode, but I wanted to pause here and really get out any additional questions you guys might have. Yes. Give her the mic.
How does security fit into this? If it's on so many decentralized servers, is there like a common security protocol? Can data be leaked?
Yeah, so at the actual core level, at this bottom level, this public blockchain level, that has all been worked out. So when I mentioned the blocks and that they get hashed together, the way that those blocks are created and the way that they're hashed is using some very sophisticated cryptography, something called ECDS and elliptic curve cryptography. And actually, well, why don't I do it right now? There's something called in cryptography, there's something called a one-way math function. Has anybody heard of a one-way math function? I mean, it's kind of intuitive what it means. But an easy example of it is to say prime number factorization, which is you guys use it all the time. So if I have the number like 12 and I want to get it into its prime, it's 4 times 3 and it's 2 times 2 times 3. So I've got it in its prime factors. But if I have a really, really big prime number and I multiply it by another really, really big prime number, it takes me like microseconds to do the multiplication. But if all I have is the product of those two numbers, there is no computer on the planet that can go back and give me those original numbers. So that's what I mean by a one-way math function. It's very easy for everybody's phones to do the one-way direction, but there's no computer on the planet that can go the other way. So what you get is that product becomes your public key, and you can give that out to anybody across the planet. And those two prime roots are your private keys. And if anybody gets a hold of those private keys, they can steal them anywhere. That's well, I like that example because it's very, it's two numbers multiplied together, right? We all learned that in grade school. The elliptic curve and the finite field cryptography becomes a lot more sophisticated, which is what Ethereum uses. But if you look at the press, I'll give you, so instead of a cryptographic nerd answer, I'll give you an evidence-based answer, which is if you look at the press and you look at kind of the hacks all come at the top level here, right? At the wallet level and hacking people that are interfacing with it. There's never been a hack at this level. If there was, there would be no value in any of these blockchains. It would just be instantly, people would sell out or whatever. So it's very secure, sort of from a nerd perspective and from a, like it's been going since 2009 and no one's hacked it kind of thing. Yes, sir. Oh, 51% attacks. Yeah. So this is when miners have too much control over the mining pool. Well, everybody always has questions about mining. I'm like, that's the least interesting part, but I appreciate it. If you have a mining pool, you have sort of all of these companies that are really have all the power of sort of doing the mining, and they're probably going to win. And if you have enough mining power for 51%, you can say, I win, and I'm going to define what the next block is. And all these transactions that you put in, I'm going to say it's something else. So you can basically hijack the blockchain if you get that level of power and control. And I believe that happened for an Ethereum Classic, which is not on this list, ETC. I think that happened at one point. But typically how people manage that is they say, I'm not going to confirm this transaction on one block. I'm going to wait till 2 or 3 or 4 blocks are attached after your transaction before I say it's okay. And you'll see that happen all the time. If there's like a large transaction that happens, people are like, yeah, okay, I see it on chain, I see it moved over, but I'm not going to actually confirm it until there's been a lot more blocks added onto it because they're afraid of that exact attack happening. Question?
Yeah, could you talk a bit more about the difference between proof of work and proof of stake and what determines which is used and what the advantages and disadvantages are?
So it's defined right when you set up the blockchain. So when Bitcoin was first invented, that's when they came out with proof of work. And then when Ethereum was first invented, they said, we're going to use proof of work as well. And the shift from proof of work to proof of stake, I think I mentioned this a minute ago, but it's basically like you just put some money on a node. You don't actually have to like run a complex algorithm to solve any problem. So I don't know if that's really. So there's a lot of arguments on both sides. The question was, if proof of work is so bad, why doesn't everybody move to proof of stake? And there's a lot of people trying to get Bitcoin to move that way. If you follow the developers of Ethereum, it took them, I think, 2 years to move from proof of work to proof of stake. So it wasn't, because Ethereum was set up as proof of work. So it took them a long time to get comfortable kind of moving. And the analogy I like to give is Ethereum is like a $200 billion plane flying in the air. And they decided, hey, these engines aren't efficient. Let's change them out in mid-flight. So I was up at 3 in the morning when the actual transition happened because I'm like, I got to watch this plane flying along. You know, they're going to actually, and the amazing thing is that they changed the engines out with brand new engines and they didn't miss a beat and it was all community led. So that's kind of crazy, but anyways, I can talk to you a little more about the difference between those two. Second, yes. Okay. Are we running out of time? Okay. Yeah, no, let's keep going. Let's keep going. I'll be around later afterwards so we can. Okay. So let's get into the lab side of things. So the first thing you guys are going to need is a wallet. So if you've got this wonderful world of Web 2 and you guys have all been experiencing Web 3 and you guys have all been experiencing Web 2, which is just simply a browser, how do I get a wallet to access it? I want to focus on Ethereum, as I mentioned before. So Bitcoin is a different wallet altogether. So we'll just get an Ethereum wallet. And just a little background on wallets. There's a custody versus non-custody wallet. So a custody wallet would be like if you got an account at Coinbase, or God forbid you had an account at FTX US, hopefully, or maybe not. If you're not from the US, you're allowed to get it in FTX. Those are exchange wallets. They're easy to use. They have been hacked in the past. But the thing that you need to recognize with an exchange wallet is you do not custody your own assets. Someone else custodies them for you. So you put money into their account and then they buy the things. And I guess everybody knows that now that FTX has gone kaput. But there's a huge distinction in my mind between, you know, exchange custody and self-custody. What you guys are going to do today is create a self-custody wallet, which means you control the wallet and you're responsible for making sure your secret keys are secret. And if you lose your secret keys, not only can people steal your funds, but they can also imitate you, and basically they render your account useless because it's been leaked out. It's more difficult to use, and a lot of people are working on how can we make wallets more easy, more user friendly. But so we're going to do the tricky part today, which isn't actually that tricky, but anyways. Okay, and then there's hot storage versus cold storage. So hot storage means live on chain, like you're accessing it and your keys are available to do transactions and sign transactions. And cold storage means I've put my private keys onto maybe a USB stick, or what we're going to do today, and maybe you can pass out the index cards now, is this is actually like an example of cold storage, which is what institutions do. Write your secret phrase on an index card and fold it up and put it away. Why is an index card cool and valuable? Because it has a lot of the elements that these huge institutions use, but it's so simple. Why wouldn't you take a picture of all of your secret phrase? You know what happens? Does anybody know where your photos go on your phone? I mean, they get backed up in different places. I don't know if it goes to Google Drives or goes to iCloud or whatever else. So I highly recommend that you write it down on an index card, fold it in half and put it away, because we also understand physical security. And the physical security of that card is also the security of your funds and your identity. So we'll do this today, but what I recommend if you guys want to do it for real is you go back to somewhere private and you generate a secret key on your own. So does that make sense? Questions? No? Okay. All right. So I already did a little cryptographic intermission, so we don't have to talk about one-way math function, but the wallets require a private key, and from that private key, you create a public key, as I mentioned before, and that's the one-way math function that does it. What Ethereum has done, and Bitcoin, frankly, is instead of having to memorize like a 0, 5, 2, 3, 7, they just create 12 words. And the spelling and the sequence of those 12 words becomes the essence of your secret key. And I want to make sure you guys understand this carefully, because this is really the key aspect of it. And this is just one example I gave. Don't do this, right? I'm showing you my secret key there. I have no idea what wallet that's for, but you could generate a wallet from those words, and there would not be any money in it. So there's no point. Okay, so and this is MetaMask, which is the wallet that we're going to install today. Has anybody? Some of you probably have MetaMask. Anybody? No? Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Yes. Who controls MetaMask? I love that question. Thank you. So MetaMask is run by a company called, I think they've been in the news actually. Barry Silber's group, DCF. Consensus runs MetaMask. They've been developing MetaMask. And there are a number of other wallets that you can use. And the previous class I spoke with, they said, is MetaMask decentralized? No, it is not. So that is a choke point. I want to give you guys, so MetaMask is kind of like Microsoft Word. Everybody uses it and everybody complains about it, but everybody uses it. So I'm just giving you the MetaMask version of the world. Yes, sir. So once you have those 12 words, you can actually move those 12 words to any wallet, any Ethereum wallet, and you can get access to your funds. Well, there's open source wallets that are never going to be all gone. So you can figure out how to compile them and run it that way, and you can get access to your money. So it's not, all is not lost. It may not be great, but right. As long as there's a wallet available, that's what he was saying. Like, what if there's no wallets? I'm like, oh, I guess then you're lost. But I'd like you guys to go to metamask.io and start and go through the process. I have some slides here to do that, but I want you to go through the process of generating a secret phrase and then write down those 12 words. And I've got a little 2-minute timer here, so. You can try it on the phone. If it works on the phone, I haven't had much luck with the phone. They don't operate too well. So in the WhatsApp group, there's a link to a Google form. So once you guys get your secret phrase copied down on a piece of paper, and you get a wallet address as a result, that wallet address is public. And I'd like you to go to the WhatsApp group. There's a form, a Google form at the top, a link to that you can click on and fill it. Give us your wallet address. I guess you can see how the user interface here isn't the greatest, right? In the top of the group, There's a link to the Google form. Oh, sorry, did you do that? It's not in there? Okay, well, if you can't see it there, let's see. Okay. This is the WhatsApp group and the Google form. So the left side is the Google form link. So if it's not showing up in the WhatsApp group, then just repost it. Anybody see it in the WhatsApp group, maybe? Yes, ma'am. What was the question? All right, do we have a bunch of wallet addresses? Is everybody getting this figured out? Everybody still eyes down? Yes, sir. Oh, we have 11 responses so far. Good work. Yes, sir. So the question is, why does the public key look like a bunch of hexadecimal numbers and the private key is a bunch of words? So digging one level deeper into the cryptography, those 12 words turn into a random seed that then turns into a big long hexadecimal number, a private key that looks similar to the public key. And actually those 12 words can generate a number of different public keys, private keys and public keys. And you can actually generate a bunch of different accounts from that. So. How are we doing? We got 14 so far. Check it out. 15. Well done. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Okay, so the question is, what am I going to do with all these addresses? I mean, what you're going to do with all these addresses is play around with Web3 world. In order to do a first transaction in the world of Web3, you need to have a little bit of funds in your wallet. And if you have 0 funds in your wallet, there are a few things you can do, but they're not very fun. So I wanted you guys to get your wallet set up live now, and I can actually deposit a small amount of currency into your wallet so that you have gas fees, basically, to do transactions. So that's why I wanted to get them all sort of organized, and I've got a nice little disperse app here that allows me to send a little bit of funds to each one of your wallets. You're getting free money. What do you know about that? I don't know if you're going to be able to do much with it, but let's keep going here. You guys can continue on, and this is pretty basic stuff. So, does everybody have MetaMask installed as like a browser extension on whatever browser they're using, Chrome or Brave, or hopefully not anything other crazy? Once you get into that, there's a couple of elements that are fairly simple to understand from kind of the browser extension perspective, but they get they're a little bit complex in the crypto world, so I want to describe them now. On the right side, when you have the pull down, does everybody have the little fox up in the browser thing? You got it? Okay. So when you pull that down, that gives you these different views that I'm showing you. One is you can click on that little icon, and it gives you an opportunity to change addresses. So there was a question earlier about, you have these 12 words. Why does it turn into this weird hexadecimal public key? And actually, those 12 words can generate a bunch of private keys that can generate a bunch of public keys. So when you go and drop down and you say account 1, account 2, account 3 on the right side here, those are all accounts that were generated from the same set of 12 words. And that'll come in handy for later conversations when we talk about wash trading and stuff. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Right here in the middle is your actual wallet address. And if you could just select the first one, like the account 1, and get your wallet address. And you guys have probably already done that since you're posting it to the Google form. But that's where it is. And then on the left, or at the very top, you see Ethereum mainnet, and that's the default network that MetaMask uses and assumes you're going to use. But for purposes of learning, I need you guys to understand that there are other chains out there that we mentioned before, but I want you to practice on some alternate chains. So it may or may not be real money, it may be fake money, we'll see. And those other chains are what's called EVM compatible chains. So you know how we talked about open source, Ethereum is open source, so anybody can grab the code, make some changes to it, and launch their own. So of course, a bunch of people have done it, right? So there's Gnosis chain, the popular ones are Gnosis chain, which is actually a proof of authority chain. We talked about proof of work and proof of stake. Proof of authority is much simpler. It's like 10 people sitting around saying, that's correct, that's correct, that's correct. When it's proof of authority, it's more centralized, but it's a hell of a lot faster and a lot cheaper. So the Gnosis chain guys created a chain that's EVM compatible, and EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, which means the basic code of running the blockchain is the same thing as Ethereum. So it's EVM compatible, and also all of the same cryptographic tools and addresses work on that chain as they did on Ethereum. So that address that you just generated is valid on all EVM chains. And you can just do that drop down in MetaMask that I showed you a second ago to change chains. Now, if your MetaMask only shows Ethereum network, when you pull that down, you need to add those extra chains to it. And there's a whole bunch of chains that you can add to it. The way that you add it is you go to chainlist.org, and you can find Gnosis and Polygon and all the other chains. And there's a nice convenient button that says add to MetaMask. So you can do it that way. It's a lot more convenient than having to type in all those low-level characters. So Gnosis chain is one that is used by a lot of people for practice, and that's what we're going to use. Every chain has a base currency. So Ethereum has ETH, and that's the base currency is used to pay for gas fees. Gnosis chain came along and created a proof of authority. And by the way, other than owning some GNO tokens, I have no other financial rights for or obligations towards Gnosis chain. But they're using XDAI, which is a stable coin, as their base currency. So it's very interesting that their gas fees are now tied to the US dollar. So instead of paying $2 or $2 to $50 to practice your transactions here on Ethereum mainnet, we're going to pay about 1/1000th of a penny to 2/1000th of a penny for each transaction. So far easier for me to just send you guys 0.5 XDAI, and then you can practice to your heart's content on the XDAI chain instead of, you're going to have to go figure out how to get money. And there's also another bootstrap problem with the Web2 world, which we're experiencing right now, which is how do you get money into your account initially? So I'm solving that for you here. Some of the other chains are Polygon, which is based out of India, and it's probably should go right after mainnet. It's huge. There's a ton of development happening on Polygon. They innovated the proof of stake concept right from the get-go. So when they launched, they said, we're not going to do proof of work, we're going to do proof of stake right off the bat. And their token and their base currency is something called Matic. So you probably see, as you explore around in the world of Web3, you'll see some Polygon-based activity. And then there's Binance, which is the other gigantic chain, and that their base currency is BNB. And that's actually a fairly centralized chain. In other words, they can turn it off whenever they want to. And usually the people that are hardcore crypto nerds are like, if you can turn off a chain, it's not very well decentralized. So I wanted to give you the kind of the rundown of the EVM compatible chains. Your address that you just created is valid on all those chains, and your secret key can, so you can store funds on all of those chains or move money around. Now, one of the questions that I always get when people say, what do I do with EVM compatible chains? Can I move money from mainnet to Gnosis chain? And the answer is yes, from something called a bridge or a cross-chain transaction. Yeah, I mentioned these transaction fees. There have been a number of hacks in bridges, but typically the way bridges work is there's a whole lot of code, but somebody puts a bunch of money on one side of the bridge and somebody puts a bunch of money on the other side of the bridge, and they just agree through code that they're going to transfer, this token from this chain to that chain, and they'll do the transaction. And usually all the hacks happen for those kind of things because there's usually a huge honeypot of money on both sides. So of course, is there some gaps in the security there, they can take advantage of it. If you, as an end user, are just trying to move money from XDAI to mainnet or from mainnet to XDAI, you can use these bridges, and it takes a few minutes to move stuff over. And presumably, you're not going to be moving millions of dollars across a bridge. But that's kind of how the world has evolved in this world of kind of Ethereum is the main one. No, Bitcoin is the main one. No, EVM compatible chains are the main one. Okay, there's a bunch of them, and we're just going to have to figure out how to move money around all these different chains. Questions on that? Yes. That's next week. So we're going to talk about exchanges next week. The short answer is Uniswap. But I've got a whole thing on Uniswap, which is a fantastic organization. It allows you to do all kinds of token swaps. And you guys are going to mint a token and be able to list it on Uniswap too. Yes, sir. There's two main factors. The number one factor is how complex is the transaction? Oh, the question was, how do you figure out what a gas fee is? So I guess there's really like three. One is, what's the current price? I mean, if you want it in dollar denominated terms, right? I'm assuming that the dollar is on the denominator of all financial transactions you're asking about. So you have to know the current price of the native token to the chain. And then you have to know, what is it that you want the transaction to do? Are you just moving some token from this wallet to that wallet? Very simple. Are you launching a smart contract because you want to do some complex derivative? Very complex, right? So depending on the amount that you're demanding of the blockchain, or if you want to store a bunch of data on chain, that's really expensive. So there's a lot of engineers that spend a lot of time trying to get their code as small as possible to try and minimize those transaction fees. So it's definitely confusing because it's like there's certain amount of there's certain amount that you get for the code that you've written, and then there's a sort of market price, and then you want to execution fees. So all of those things go into figuring it out. So if you just want to move token from one wallet to another and you're doing it on the XDAI chain, that's like not a lot of money. If you want to launch a DAO, which is what we're going to do next week, which is a complex set of contracts, and you're actually issuing and minting a token, that's expensive. And that's why we want to do it on the XDAI Gnosis chain and not on mainnet. But you learn on the Gnosis chain, and then when you want to have a real thing, you launch it on mainnet. Or you launch it on XDAI and then you bridge it to mainnet. Maybe that's a better strategy. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, why is it more expensive on one chain than another? And it's primarily to do with these factors that are on screen here. What is the price of the base currency of the chain? So Ethereum got so popular that the price of Ethereum is so high, but that's the base currency of Ethereum, so everything gets more expensive then. Gnosis has like a stable coin locked into its fee structure, so it's of course going to be lower priced. That's basically the quick answer. Right, right. So proof of stake doesn't have any miners, it just has people that stake it. Proof of authority is just a bunch of individuals that are saying this is a valid transaction. So there is no miner fees associated with proof of authority. That's the other reason why it's so cheap. So there's a lot of questions around Gnosis chain and whether or not it's secure as some of the other ones and whether or not it's as good. But for purposes of this class and for you guys playing around with it, it's the best chain we can do. I thought about Polygon too, because that's a pretty good one, but okay, let's keep going. This is back to a little more theory. The thing that's very unusual about blockchain and about cryptocurrency is it's anonymous, but all of your transactions are public. So if you think about the banking industry, you know, there's all kinds of transactions that happen that some people have visibility into. But every single transaction you do, so if you guys take your wallet address right now and you go to etherscan.io and type in your wallet address, you'll see, and you don't have to log in or do anything for it, you'll see the transactions in your wallet, which there should be none. But if you want an address to use, you can type in vitalik.eth and you can get Vitalik's address and you can see, actually, let me just do that. I think I can do that live here. Maybe I have done it already. Well, here's one on, oh, no, my internet is not good. If you guys go to your own machine and you can type in Etherscan, let me bring that slide back up again, etherscan.io, you can see all the transactions that are happening. So there's a bunch of weird factors that happen at this point because now I have a wallet and it's anonymous, or nobody knows who it is unless I disclose it, but you can track all of my ins and outs and everything that I've been doing. So if you look at Vitalik's wallet right now, Vitalik.eth's wallet, I think he has like 20 million bucks in it or something, and you can just see that balance sitting there, which is a strange thing. And I was talking to a bunch of other students, and they're like this is like, it's like a safety deposit box that's glass, that's transparent. You can see everything in, and it has a slot. You can also, anybody can deposit into your wallet address too. They don't need your key to deposit stuff in. So there's something called dusting, where I've got some wallets that have a bunch of little worthless tokens that someone just threw in there because they're trying to get, you know, I don't know what they're trying to do. I haven't clicked on any of the links or any of the things they've done. And you're the only one that has a key that can take anything out or do a transaction based on your wallet address. So a lot of people talk about, you know, regulation of cryptocurrency and about illicit drugs in cryptocurrency. The fact that if you put all those things together, like the permanent transactions that are always available and anybody can look at them and they're always visible and they're completely visible. Like I've talked to some people at FinCEN and they've been like quietly like, yeah, we kind of really like this blockchain thing because we can just track the shit out of everything. We've got some fantastic tools that are allowing us to figure stuff out and really kind of diving into it to see where the criminals are. So that's an aspect that I really like, that I don't think gets a lot of press, because I don't know if the diehard crypto people really like the fact that like anybody can look at all my transactions. Isn't that great? Well, wait a minute, anybody can look at all my transactions. I'm not sure I like that so much. And you may have heard of something called, I think it's called Tor or Tor Cash. And it's a mixer where you can send, and they have different buckets. This is a way to try and obfuscate this transactions. They have different buckets, like a 10 ETH bucket, a 1 ETH bucket, and a 0.1 ETH bucket. And you only can put in denominations of 10 ETH into this bucket, and they run it through some code, and then it spits out 10 ETH to some place else that you've privately told the transaction where you want it to go to. That was just rendered illegal, and the programmers for that were thrown in jail in Norway, which I thought was incredible. But anyways, that was like an attempt to try and get some anonymity in this world of blockchain. But for our purposes, I want you guys to try out etherscan.io. You can try out vitalik.eth. You can look around. It has every one of the transactions. It has ERC20 tokens, which are like, I didn't talk about that actually. ERC20 tokens are every token that's built on top of the Ethereum chain. So probably the most popular is DAI and USDC. Those are ERC20 tokens built on the Ethereum blockchain that are stable coins. And those are the ones that have a tremendous amount of value. Yes, sir. Yep. I don't know. I'm not with FinCEN, but they have ways. There was a fantastic article in Wired about how they took down one of these illicit operations, and they talked about subpoenaing all the like ISPs and stuff around the world and getting access to that. I know that exchanges will give out all the identity information of account holders. So if there's illicit activity in it, so sometimes people use centralized exchanges as a way of obfuscating, because as soon as it goes to a centralized exchange, it's off chain. You can't see it anymore. And sometimes they'll use that to take some funds in and then move it out somewhere else, right? But that is subject to any government agency that says, give me the records of the people that are doing that, then you're caught and you're screwed. So. Right. That's beyond my pay grade. You're going to have to ask this guy back here. He probably has the answer for you. Cool. Okay, so I think I mean, a lot of people use Etherscan to confirm transactions. And for example, if you get an invoice and you can pay for it in crypto, you say, well, send me the link of the transaction on Etherscan that confirms that you actually sent this to the wallet that I asked you for, right? And in fact, I've talked to some CFOs about this, and they're like, yeah, when we charge $88.89 for a product and 10,000 people send us $88.89, we can't tell, where did it come from and how, we got all these transactions for that amount, and it's a pain. But so there's a lot of improvements to be done there. A block explorer for the Gnosis chain is called Block Scout. So you can do exactly the same thing I just described with the Etherscan, except you go to Block Scout and select the Gnosis chain to look at your exact same address on Block Scout. We'll have some data there. And you can do the same thing for Polygon as well. Okay, any questions on that? I think we're good. I do have some next week updates and homework assignments. Are we ready for that? Questions? Yeah, let's go stick with questions. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, how far can you chase a wallet? Typically, the endpoints are exchanges. So if funds come off of a wallet, they go into an exchange. And we just talked about how you would chase that down. But those are the only endpoints. The rest of the time, the money stays on chain. It doesn't get burned or disappear. And theoretically, you should be able to search back to the history forever. Like any of the scams or any of the stuff that you read about now, you can go back on chain and go back to Etherscan and find the transaction where it happened. In fact, Etherscan is usually very active whenever there's an active hack going on. Somebody asked the question, how secure is it? I forgot to mention in the smart contract layer, that's a bunch of developers all over the world are developing smart contracts. And of course, some of them are going to make mistakes. So those are the subject of hacks. So in that box, there's smart contracts and there's wallets, and that's typically where all the hacks happen. But sometimes you find an active hack happening, and Etherscan will post like, this address is known to be hacked or rug pulled or something, and you can watch the transactions. Like I've done it, like you get on Twitter, I'm like, oh, there's an active hack happening, and I can watch it, people moving funds through Etherscan, I can see it happening. I'm like, I don't know where this is going, but it'd be fun to chase it down, right? I mean, it's great fun. Actual crime happening right in front of me, I think. Question, yes, sir. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Correct. Yeah, good question. There's a bunch of other wallets. I know the guys that are developing Tallyho wallet. You can actually get the source code for the core Ethereum command line wallet if you really want to geek out, and go to the base level. That's what the question earlier was, like, what happens if all these companies go out of business? I'm like, well, there is source code that you could, if all of these companies go out of business, which I can't imagine happening, you can actually get to the source code and access your funds that way if you need to. But if that happens, I mean, you want to get your money off, you're probably going to go to a centralized exchange to get it off. The on-ramps and off-ramps we haven't talked about either, but that's typically like a Coinbase will transition between online transactions and into your bank account or back again. So that's like Coinbase or FTX, formerly known as FTX, would do those kind of transactions. That's how you get it. Usually I get that question early on. I guess you guys are just geeked on this crypto stuff. It's fantastic. Okay. Yes, sir.
We have a question from the folks at home. First question, how do you tie on-chain transactions to the physical world?
I don't know. No, that's a great question. And a lot of people are trying to work on that. In fact, probably the biggest effort is trying to connect on-chain transactions to real-world assets. And if you Google California DMV blockchain, they just announced that they're going to put the car titles on-chain. And why they chose the Tezos blockchain, I don't know, but hopefully my friends at Tezos aren't watching. But anyways, but that's a great step. And I believe Delaware years ago announced they're going to put all, what is it called? What is the thing called that you perfect all debt instruments in the Delaware ledger? UCC filings. Yes, they were going to put the UCC filings on chain, which would be tremendous if we could do that. I'm actually part of a blockchain leadership group in Boston, and we've got connections to the State House. Forget about the senator down in, we love her, but but we have connections to the State House here in Massachusetts, and I forget her name, Kate Lipper something. She's spearheading all the blockchain bills in the Massachusetts Senate, and I've been asking her because the interface between blockchain and the rest of the world, if we could just get some IDs on chain or have an avenue to have it on chain, that would be tremendous and would open up a lot of things, especially if it's a state of Massachusetts driver's license approved by the state of Massachusetts on chain. We could then open up all kinds of KYC things if you had access to that. And I'm like, I emailed her and I said, by the way, that would put Massachusetts as a leader in the country. It would be pretty cool. And then California comes out with their DMV thing. I'm like, damn it. But I've had students that have tried to run ventures, and some of the other challenges or the other things they looked at were, students that were currently buying houses, and they're like, why do I have to pay $2,000 for a title search? Like, what the hell is up with that? If we could just put housing titles on chain, wouldn't that be fantastic? You could just click on it and go, oh, there it is. I can see the provenance of my title through all of these, transactions. Yes, other questions?
Yes. If you can track transactions, how come when the big exchanges were hacked and claimed the money was gone, how come it was not tracked?
They stopped using the blockchain as soon as it goes internally. So once a centralized exchange has your funds, it all goes to one wallet on chain. So they're all commingled together. And then as soon as they take that off chain and cash it out or whatever, it's gone, or it's whatever. It's supposed to be held, by the company that holds it, but it's not. Other questions? Is there more on? What's that? Okay. So next week, I'm glad you guys got a good first basis of kind of understanding wallets. So that's kind of the ground basis. We're going to do a bunch of stuff next week on doing like an on-chain investment club. So think about if you and your friends wanted to buy NFTs together, how would you do that? There's some great tools online. DAO creation and DAO, I like to call it an electronic boardroom. Some people call me old for using that phrase, but I happen to like the phrasing better. And then also you can invest in unique digital assets. Does anybody know what a unique digital asset is? Thank you. Isn't that a much better way of saying NFTs? When you say NFTs, I guess everybody knows what they are now, but before it was like, well, it stands for non-fungible token. Okay, what the hell does that mean? So anyways, I call it unique digital assets. But then we'll do token creation and trading. And then if you guys want to explore DApp Radar, you can go to CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap to look at tokens and their prices. And if you want to swap tokens, use Uniswap. If you want to see these are all the big ones. These are like the what would you call it? The S&P 500 of kind of these things. There's thousands of others, but I wanted you guys to focus on that aspect. And I have one last thing. If there's any other questions or any other things, I have the Bitcoin rap battle. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty old, and there's some stuff that's dated in here, but I have to say that they really thought about it and they really did a good job. Have you seen it? Okay. Let me play it for you guys. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to. I think if my internet works. Oh my.
Judge two experts in a critical debate in this court to create a centralized banking. Make some noise for Alexander.
Can you hear that?
This corner, the creator of the Bitcoin, the believer in the blockchain. Give it up for Satoshi Nakamoto. You may begin.
Before we begin, everyone do me a favor. Read a little thing I wrote called the Federalist Papers. I explain how a nation's unlikely to survive without a strong central government to keep it alive. When I launched the central bank, Jefferson called me ill. Now you have my face to thank on every $10 bill. When America was cash-strapped, I pushed past that. Now some sicko makes crypto, and our nation backtracks. Decentralized currency, yes, I invented it. I'm sure many governments wish they had prevented it. The national cash is how they keep control. But freedom to the people was my ultimate goal. Am I a pseudonym, a group of men? It doesn't even matter. Nope. I invented Bitcoin because fiat is a disaster. A man from Japan or a damn hologram. I'm the reason open season on crypto began. Does anybody know what this crypto thing means? To me, sounds like the new get broke quick scheme. A bunch of fools from across the land investing in something they don't even understand. Buying Litecoin cash, Bitcoin cash. It's all gonna crash and be gone in a flash. All this unsupported money's an irrational prank. And I'll be laughing all the way to my national bank. Yeah, dude, super funny. As if banks these days still help people make money. The rich get richer and we follow like we're all sheep. The banks serve Wall Street, crypto serves all streets. The interest in crypto is on rapid ascent. What's your current interest? Like 0.5%? I'm sorry, the bank's gone past its peak. But I want info encrypted, not hacked and leaked. If this crypto system will be our salvation, it needs to be centralized, needs regulation. If our central database gets, how you say, hacked, insurance will just take a case to get your money back. In fact, it's tracked, and the money leaves a trail. Central currency is strong, cryptocurrency is frail. Untraceable money, wow, so clever. One typo in your address, now it's gone forever. Crypto is frail, that's the essence of your lesson. Your money leaves a trail, yeah, a trail to a recession. A bunch of rich white guys made this system. Why would they ever change it when it made them rich men? Movie mobiles fought hard against the VCR. Horse and buggy manufacturers all hated the car. So why would I take my advice from the banks? I don't need a bailout to survive. Thanks.
The system is so broken. We need that crypto token.
The system isn't broken. Can we trust crypto token?
It gotta be centralized,
Decentralized.
centralized,
Decentralized.
we need control.
Free enterprise.
Bring me the facts, please testify.
Fiat's the way a government controls the populace. Government protects its people. All of this is obvious. They keep the peace, and so they keep control. You want us ruled by crypto miners no one even knows? Oh, it's that strong central government bit again. They protect people, but only their citizens. Crypto has no borders. It's a true global currency, and censorship resistance for those who need it urgently. Banks earn trust by assuming liability. You know a key, we know the customer explicitly. Will the real Satoshi please stand up? Nope, you'll still be hiding when crypto busts. You don't need to trust the people, you just need to trust the code. Every record's in the network, you just one node. And when you find a flaw, there's a software update. Now try updating cash. Go ahead, I'll wait. Wait, cash works, you immediately pay. Crypto's a far worse medium of exchange. Can't Bitcoin the dentist, can't Bitcoin my breakfast. Can't even use Bitcoin at Bitcoin conventions. No currency starts with universal adoption. It takes time for places to make it an option. Plus billions of people don't have bank accounts. No savings, no interest, no checks to bounce. You're saving the world, but what's the price you're paying? The only change you're creating is climate change. Power grids spiking all across the land. Overheated, no one needs it, hope it all gets banned. From the king of paper currency, the hypocrisy. For bills and forms and triplicates, you're killing all the trees. Don't like my power usage? Stop targeting my rights. I own my purchase power, and the market sets the price. It's gonna get real dark if this is crypto's night. They use your currency for crimes, that's your kryptonite. Most crime is done with Benjamins, not the blockchain. There's a reason most dollars carry traces of cocaine. Where's your proof of work? That's pure speculation. Those darknet black markets need more regulation. The world's full of currencies, and this one makes it worse. 180 now, Bitcoin's 180 first. It's not the currency itself, it's the method, man. You can't build things that last without a central plan. Crypto is a balance to the centralized model, cause things fall apart, the sensor cannot hide. If you end up having problems, I feel bad for you, son. I've got 99 problems, but a fit ain't one.
God, hold on. We are not having a duel. That is the end of the debate. Now it's time for the people.
There you go. It still holds up, right? Pretty good. Fellow, and I run something called the Digital Assets Policy Project, which is a new little project we've started here at the Kennedy School. And I just want to post a list of some of the other things we have coming up. But it will all be on our website. The new stuff isn't on our website yet. The link at the bottom is the website. So, we've got the IMF Deputy Managing Director who's going to come and talk about what other countries are doing. You got countries that are banning crypto. You've got some countries adopting Bitcoin as legal tender, and obviously a lot of others in between figuring out how to regulate it. We've got former SEC Chair Jay Clayton, Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Jay Clayton, talking about crypto regulation, and then we're going to do some things on financial inclusion, and actually hoping to do something on decentralized identity, what Steve was talking about in terms of having your identity credentials on chain. And that's a hugely important development if that can happen. In any event, hope you enjoyed this. What you learned, I want to underscore one thing. By learning how to do a self-custody wallet, as Steve said, if you go on a centralized exchange or any Bitcoin exchange, you're not on the blockchain. And that's something that most people do not understand. It's just a ledger account. I may have some differences with Steve about the public policy implications of all this and can it be money and all that. Where's my gun?
But I love the fact that, we're able to offer this, and you can learn, kind of the basics of what blockchain really is and how you can use it, because that's really important. So thanks again, Steve, and we'll be here next week, same time.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
It's fun.
When are we gonna spar? I'm ready.
Oh, see, I'm not quite where Alex is. More food if anybody wants.
Please. Well, there's a list of. I gotta post. Let me post the slides to the WhatsApp group, and then you guys can. There's a list of homework that you can do on that. But next week we're gonna do a bunch more stuff. I should.